We're all familiar with the boy who cried wolf, right? Boy says there's a wolf coming, he's going to eat me. Too many times the villagers respond every time, and there's never any wolf. So he set a precedent unwittingly that he's a liar. Every time he says there's a wolf, there's not actually a wolf, and he has to deal with the consequences when there actually is a wolf, and the wolf chow, formerly named Boy, gets eaten. Nobody comes to his rescue. It's slightly different in legal terminology, but the idea is that once a precedent is set, it is referred back to in any case in the future that has similar sorts of circumstances. Legalism means that cases are referred to sort of as evidence in future cases with similar sorts of circumstances, situations. The term stare decisis, which means in Latin, let the decision stand, is referenced as kind of the consistency clause. The consistency by which a law is imposed and enforced is very important. It's one of the few tenets by which a law is deemed just. It can only be a just law if it's enforced and enforced regularly with consistency to all cases that it is relevant to. And that's where some scholars have said that the consistency of application of law is sometimes more important than the just application. In the United States, precedent falls under the category of common law, which has equal footing with statutory law, those enacted by Congress, and regulatory law, those enacted by the executive branch. The importance of precedent is that it dictates legal battles in the future. People can refer back to cases and know basically what to do for current cases. Even if you're not in legal or political sectors, you'll still often hear cases, especially landmark cases like Roe versus Wade or Brown versus Board of Education, referenced in day-to-day life. And that's because it kind of gives us clarity on future cases moving forward. Before some cases even arise, you can kind of have a good indication of where that case is going to go, how the court is going to rule. However, they aren't set in stone. Precedent doesn't mean that the judge on a particular case has to follow the previous ruling. It's generally encouraged for that consistency, but it isn't the rule of law to follow previous ruling. One example would be if the culture has changed, if the country has changed since some case 50, 60, 100 years ago, and it isn't quite as relevant to whatever case may be presented today. Now, oftentimes with these inconsistencies or arbitrary or ambiguous language come up, there can be some wiggle room with the legislation or the regulations. However, when it has something to do with the federal constitution, which is nearly impossible to alter, it's more readily apparent that going back on precedent, changing that decision, or making a different decision than a previous case are more common. So in short, precedent is pretty important in American legal structure. It kind of paves the way for future cases to be decided and has a wealth of history for judges to be able to refer back to and say, oh, what did my predecessors do? However, it's not permanent. It's not something that can't be changed. In fact, there's some of the biggest cases have been overturning years and years, decades and decades of precedent. So that's precedent. I mainly did this video to lead up to a couple other videos I plan on doing in the very near future regarding specific laws. So I hope you'll enjoy them as much as I'm enjoying researching them. I hope we're all on the same page, and see you next time.